Two, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We move Huddy in here. Hello, we are live. Welcome into another episode of Good Morning NASDAQ. I'm joined today by Mr. Michael Hudson and Mr. Jackery Kellogg. Kellogg, talk. Let's see if your face goes into this box.
Yo.
There he is. Say, hey, how are you?
Hey, how are ya?
So happy to be here. It is 9/11/2023. Getting into mid-September, starting to feel like fall. It's getting colder in the mornings here. I'm getting lots of pictures of deers in the field. It's starting to feel like fall. Kids are back in school. Looking forward to hopefully the market picking up as we wrap up 2023. But yeah, let's get into her today. We got a few of us to talk. I didn't see too many crazy gappers this morning. Let me see here. If we go to the Skinner.
Yeah, the first thing that I'm kind of looking at from a gap perspective and things that are interesting to me is definitely just going to point out CGC. Having a little 10% gap up right now, but clearly was a hot theme last week. A couple multi-day breakouts that got us here, running off the backbone of some rescheduling of weed and what it means to the United States of America.
What it means to be a weed.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the catalyst itself, but I know that it brought in some healthy price action, some big volume. And so we are seeing some follow through, 8 days later, 7 trading days, whatever it is. So that's interesting going into this week.
Very interesting indeed. Nice to see as we talk about hopefully into the fall, into next year, election year, like you've been saying for weeks now. Hot sectors definitely help. So if this little weed run can spark something else, if we can get some more tickers, if there is a God, if we can have some OTC runners as well, that would be fantastic. We did have some foreign tickers running last week, TCNNF, CRLBF, GTBIF. But it's nice to see CGC, probably the best one trading last week. I don't think there's anything else really running with it right now, is it? Yeah, Tilray still short of the breakout.
ACB is the other gapper right now, kind of gapping over this short-term level that it's created in the past week. So just identifying the strength in the sector, they're all kind of starting to pop one by one. And so who knows where that's going to lead us. But if it becomes a big theme, I definitely want to be prepared and aware that this is what's moving in small cap.
And how do you approach a warming sector, if you will, Mr. Huddy? You're not just buying every weed ticker right now, hoping that they all catch fire. I know you mentioned it in chat this morning. What is your strategy for a potential hot sector in the future?
So there's two ways to approach it. The one way that I don't want to get super crafty with it, right? I don't want to start trying to pull rabbits out of hats. The most obvious way to play it is to wait for the obvious, chart patterns and be as disciplined and patient for them. So if you're, someone that was doing that last week, you're probably playing CGC because it had a really nice breakout over 60 cents and another really nice breakout over 80. But for me personally, I like to find smaller market caps. I like to find stocks without dilution. I like to find stocks that can move really, really big in the presence of hot news or hot themes. So my process would be to play the daily charts if I like them. So CGC was something that I would have been playing last week, and I was. And then going forward, I want to build a list of the smallest of weed companies listed on the NASDAQ, market caps that are underneath probably like 25 mil. And then I'm looking at their daily charts and I'm saying, okay, has this spiked a bunch and failed? Are there a bunch of bag holders, or does it have kind of a clean chart with room to run? And last but not least, like if I am going to play the kind of sit in some of these and wait for them to break out approach and form the charts, which is a little bit more risky, the first thing I'm doing is thinking, okay, what's the dilution status? Am I going to get completely diluted on? Is there going to be an offering? Is there anything I can avoid in terms of disaster? So if I am going to, sit in some stocks and wait for them to pop, I'm definitely looking for ones that don't have a huge presence of dilution as well.
Gosh, that's so awesome to hear. Thank you, Huddy.
Yeah.
Kellogg, anything to add on the weed sector before we get into today's gappers?
Yeah, I bought some CGC at 92 for a weekend gap. Pretty much just hot ticker, held all of after hours, so did the little 759 thing. Nice 11-12% gap up so far. I think the main thing is, are we going to hold a buck at the open and continue to trend up, or are we going to fade back red? And I think that will have a lot to do with how crazy this week can possibly be. Not sure what to expect, but similar thinking to Huddy, just making a list of tickers, because the tickers are a lot different. I mean, a couple, 3-4 years ago, we're looking at Nugs, Buds, Medman, shit like that. But this time around, I think it's going to be very, 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 very different tickers. Of course, we still have Tilray, CGC. Those are kind of the core, but I think that the sympathy tickers are going to be looking a lot different than what we saw, several years ago for you guys who were around back then.
And we've had some pretty great memories. Kellogg, did you make money during the first weed run, 2017?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, we've had some great memories with them. A lot of them were in the OTC world. That was back when TLRY was making its starting push towards $300 a share. It was craziness. It was awesome. But all right, let us get into the gappers, if I can get off of this. NBY, I've seen some chatter in chat today about this one already. Let's take a look at news, all that good stuff to get her going. Overall risk, of dilution is high. Looks like we have 880,000 shares at ATM, 7.31 million in warrants, some convertible notes, some convertible prefers. Potential to dilute this thing like 4x the float right now. Float is 4 million. News today. Do we have news, Jack? I don't see any on dilution tracker. Let's go to Yahoo. 1 hour ago. Announces agreement with BioStem Technology to commercialize amniotic tissue allograft as an Avenova allograft. So they have the rights to commercialize some other company's product. Okay. 5.2 months of cash left. Let's take a look at the data chart. And what do we see here? Pretty big move so far, 90% up. Kind of started in that low price range as well, 60 cents up into the $1.30s already this morning. Let's take a look at gap history. Pretty much nothing to write home about. Every time the stock hits volume, tends to have a little wick and then close near the lows. No real big runs to write home about either on this stock going back. And no real volume going back past this year. What do we think, Jack?
I think that it's probably going to be a gap and crap. Maybe like 30-35% move from high day down. I did short like 1/3 of the shares I had located at 129. And I did a small long on it, 103 to 120. Just playing the range for now in the pre-market, getting a feel for it. But I think 130 there's 5 million warrants, and 150 there's another few million warrants. Very dilutive stock, a lot of history of gap and craps. But it is trading 12 million shares so far in the pre-market today, and still looking pretty strong in my opinion. So we can see, maybe we can spike to the high ones, and we'll just see how it goes from there. I'm doing some I'm trying to see what the stock looks like when it gets volume through this website on Flash Research. Eduardo actually showed me it.
Is that the one that goes back and tells you every time the stock has a certain level of volume or certain PR or something, what it tends to do, like where its highs are percentage-wise from the open, from the pre-market highs, all that stuff?
Yep, exactly right.
Using previous data and history to inform you about future moves, these small cap stocks, these patterns repeat themselves, and it's not rocket science, the patterns, because These people are humans and they are trying to run a business, but primarily trying to make cash. And the way to do that for them is mostly through this stock price. Someone asked in the chat, what is dilution? It's really just the ability to screw over shareholders, to put cash in the business or in their hands, and taking it out of the stock price, either through deals with financiers. Holy bananas. Theo. I'm going to mute myself. Huddy, talk about dilution.
Yeah, so it's a pretty simple process. Pretty much the company creates shares and says, hey, if you give me money, I'll give you shares for a cheaper price. Then these people have shares from a cheaper price than the rest of retail. So it's kind of like a hidden supply level. And if they are in the money and, you know, profiting, so in this case, NBY, like they have warrants at $1.30, as Jack just said. So you would believe that, you know, anything above $1.30, they would have incentive to sell. So any big spike or gap up into that area, they're going to take advantage of that kind of liquidity and just sell into it and make a profit off of their financing deal. You see it all the time in small cap. It's a classic way to raise money in the stock market. And it's something that I try to be aware of because it can be a lot of, again, hidden selling pressure that's not necessarily marked on the chart.
And on the screen here, I have shown, you know, those levels that Huddy is talking about. You have the 130 area, and this is all available if you go through the filings. If you go through dilution tracker, you can see exactly how many warrants are outstanding at certain levels. And these ones are exercise price at 130. So everything Huddy was just saying, all that supply is sitting at cannot be exercised unless we're over $1.30. And then we have some at $1.50, more at $1.50, and then some higher. But it's just doing a little bit of extra due diligence that we try to do here in Good Morning NASDAQ to be aware of it. You know, I use dilution not necessarily as an edge for me in terms of trading. It's more of a way to keep me safe and understand that if I'm buying this today, like, and I'm wondering why is 130 this imaginary resistance level, or 150, you know, it offers a lot of information that can keep you safe, especially when you have companies that have really overall high risks. They've done a lot of offerings. They have ATMs. Those are the type of situations where swinging overnight can become really dangerous. They're generally going to have more risk of bad news. So understanding this stuff and just spending a couple minutes or seconds going through this can really be something that saves you a lot of money in the market, not just makes you. In terms of gappers, that's really the only one that's over 30% on the day. I saw YOSH, pretty uninteresting there. That one was on scan. Was that a reverse split recently?
Which one?
YOSH. I'm trying to remember.
Yosh?
It was on the list a little while ago. Nothing too interesting there. They signed a non-binding memorandum of understanding to acquire Las Vegas restaurants. Sounds vague.
NBY had a good pull off 130 dilution level.
Oh, that's the level. Right.
Yep, right into it. And these days with the access to dilution, like back in the day, remember when you had to watch Michael Good's How to Read SEC Filings, and going through the SEC filings was a headache. You had to spend like an hour at night going through it to find the accurate float, to find where the warrants are, to find if they have an ATM. Nowadays, websites like Dilution Tracker, I'm sure there's other ones out there. You know, BAM SEC, I think is an easy way to go through it. All this information's like available in the click of a button. You know, it didn't take long there to recognize where the levels are, where there are warrants, and where there is potential dilution on the stock. Doesn't mean that they have to use them when the stock gets over 130 or gets over 150. But that's when price action and technical analysis lends a helping hand, and you see what's going on at those levels. Let's see
What's the
here.
plan for Axla? Party.
Kind of, you know, saw it drifting off into after hours. I think it's extended enough to go after it as a short. I will say that I don't love the way that it kind of spiked up into the 98. Kind of felt weird in the way that it traded. And this gap down's a bothering thing, but I think if it stays weak, I'm probably going to short pops into one and see if it presents good risk reward. I could definitely see this having a red candle. You know?
Sounds like a plan, Daniel.
Yeah, and then basically what I'm doing and what most of the Clovers are doing besides, Kellogg is probably the one who's trading the most day one action, the stuff that we're actually looking at on Good Morning NASDAQ. Always just keeping former runners on watch. I see some of you guys talking about stuff like CGC, AXLA. Someone mentioned NVOS, key level 25 cents as support. Yeah, those are the stocks that I'm continually watching. NVOS, kind of a headache at this point that it's still holding up and it's felt like it's on the edge of a cliff the entire time. That's something I'm definitely going to keep an eye on as well. CGC still holding up. I'd love to see that thing go further and further for potential short or set up in if this is the beginning of something much bigger. We have a pretty boring daily chart, top left to bottom right. This is the first time it's really broken trend from just lower highs and new lows. If this wants to go much higher, if we do get a little couple week long, a couple month long momentum, something I'm going to definitely keep on watch. Going to do everything that Huddy's talking about in terms of creating a list for potential hot sectors. Former runners is key, and just understanding the market sentiment. We'll kind of end it here. Kellogg, what'd you learn from last week going into this week? That's kind of giving you the sentiment of long versus short, buyers versus sellers. Gapper should fade, gapper should run. You're really the best one who really, I feel like, takes the temperature of the market. So we're here on Monday morning. What are we feeling like the week's going to look like based off of the last few weeks?
Well, on Monday or Tuesday last week, we had VERB, which ran from 70-cent close to 330 intraday, and then went up a little bit more in the after hours. It was pretty much a mega short squeeze where it tanked a little bit at 3 p.m. and then came back and went straight up. And I think a lot of shorts got bent on that. And with that being said, the rest of the week we saw some good gap and craps with, I think one was WDTH or something, WFTH, something like that. But I missed that one that day because I was fishing. And then Friday we had
WHLR?
VIC. Huh?
Was it WHLR?
WHLR. Yeah, that one was a good gap and crap. Followed up by Bioke the next day, which was also a gap and crap. And now we have NBY today on Monday, and I think that the trend will continue with stocks gapping up and struggling. But I think probably by end of week, we'll see another, multi 100% squeezer where it gaps up and actually holds and squeezes. But just continuing to follow the trend of stocks that are going to gap up and crap until it changes. And with that being said, that's why I'm short MDY. I think it will crap today, but staying cautious because I feel like a squeezer will come. I just don't think that 2 days of gap and craps is enough to kind of change the cycle. Maybe once we get into the back half of the week, we could see a possible squeeze out. That's what I'm thinking.
All right. Well, thank you, Huddy. Thank you, Jack, for being here. Thank you guys for being here. If you wouldn't mind, before we head out, just hit that like button. There's over 80 of you watching. It really helps out the algorithm, makes management happy, helps keep the show free. Because we try to do as much as we possibly can for you. Good Morning NASDAQ's live 5 days a week. We also have Wine Wednesday here on the YouTube channel. So just show the support for the value we're trying to offer you guys with a little click of the button, a little like, and subscribe to the channel. That's all that we ask from you. If you want a little more education and you want more access to us, you can get yourself a 7-day trial over on clovertrading.io, link in the description below. 7 days for $7. You'll get multiple webinars, access to everything on the website, video lessons, archived webinars, trade alerts, watch lists, the whole shebang. So if you want access to that, get in. Monday's a great day to do it as well because we haven't done any of the webinars yet this week, and you'd have access to all of those. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a fantabulous Monday and a fantabulous start to your week, and we will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Good Morning NASDAQ. Have a wonderful Christmas.